Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Mute continues to be my old foe, and it has graced itself with its presence again. I am your host for tonight, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at News Notes Need on Twitter, CP Caps on Instagram. Yeah, that was eventually going to come back. I knew it. And the man with that particular ditty, our man in Brooklyn, this man behind the sound effects, one Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
I got another one I need to put on deck because I just thought about that and I keep forgetting to pull it, but I'll have to do that later. Anyway, not with us tonight. It's PCN_Dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and his umbrella sites therein.
He's too busy celebrating the upcoming Lunar New Year.
Yeah. Hope he's getting drunk for the rest of us. That's not what he's doing, but hey, who knows what he's doing. And also not with us tonight, Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter. That is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. The Click Nation and theclicknation.com. That's the KLIQNATION. And also Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. Indeed. And you can find this here podcast on the CSPN podcast network. That's the host of the podcast network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Indeed. And you can also find this here podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice. I need to find another P. Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. And with that out of the way, we can also tell you that we do record every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. on the Click Nation YouTube page. If you are here on that page right now as we're recording, hi, how you doing?
What's up?
I can't see chat because for some strange reason it shows whether it wants to enable or not for some other reason, and I haven't figured out why it doesn't. Anyway, we'll work that out one of these days. But for now, we will get to the comic books of the week, starting off with new number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy. It is back after, 2 weeks? 2 week hiatus.
A barely noticeable hiatus. It's
Exactly.
really out the next month, pretty much right on time.
Yeah, it was basically, hey, it ended at the end of last year, and then it just comes back now. Poof. Yeah.
Right. And one of the pleasant things, I was about to say before you get into the meat and potatoes of it, one of the pleasant things about this particular soft relaunch of the Guardians is that Al Ewing, the new writer, is really picking up right where the last volume of Guardians of the Galaxy written by Donny Cates left off.
Which is not surprising because that's what most volumes of most books that have had relaunches have been doing. Which is kind of unnerving, but also what can you do even with a new creative team?
Right. But I think this one more so than even the most recent soft relaunch of Thor.
Sure.
Where you do get but this really feels like the immediate next issue. There isn't much of a change in terms of the status quo.
Sure. And it makes sense how, I guess in this case, it kind of makes sense because there was a lot that happened at the end of that last volume, as cleanly as it ended. It was like, we basically come in to where the Guardians have earned a much needed respite, and at first I thought it was like, this is clearly a dream sequence or something because like this can't be going that idyllic for these folks
that well. I understand.
Right. So, but at some point you knew the shoe was going to drop, and it did. But at the same time, it was like, this looks a little too idyllic for this team, and so like something else had to be going on. But apparently, no, they basically settled down on Half World, and they were having a nice little family barbecue, and things were going right until freaking Richard Rider decides to run his behind.
They were having a little bit of R&R, rest and relaxation, and enjoying what seemed to be like a strangely timed Thanksgiving dinner. But that's in either event, that was there was plenty of talk about how turkey seemed to have weird skin. And
everybody but a couple of people at the table are know of human customs, so or know decently enough of human customs to know one way or the other.
Right. I mean, obviously Rocket is going to have his own issues with it. And I noticed that just before you get into the meat and potatoes of the issue with Richard Rider and what happens after that, I noticed that Rocket, I could hear Rocket in Bradley Cooper's voice.
Yeah.
There were a lot of moments in this where I felt that Al Ewing was definitely writing with that in mind.
I feel like there is a lot of that, not just this week, but in the MCU or in the Marvel Universe period at times.
It fluctuates, but I think because I don't remember Donny Cates writing with that voice in mind so much, but here I definitely hear it.
Yeah, there were. I feel like there was at least one or two times where he did kind of evoke it, but now, this does seem a little bit more direct. But at the same time, even regardless of what the MCU or not, I feel like the tone that was in the beginning of this book, was a tone that we haven't really seen one in a good bit, but two probably if all that ever, because usually they're just kind of going from one thing to the next, which is actually kind of funny because I think I even have it in my notes to where it feels like there was a commentary on event fatigue when Nova was talking.
Right.
It was like, well, we're always going from next thing to next thing to the next thing, and and nobody cares, and all this kind of good mess and this and that other. Like that sounds like some more commentary that Al Ewing does kind of drop some stuff in there like that. Whether this was intentional or I'm just reading into it or not is a totally separate thing, but it does feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
But that being the case, though, like I said, yeah, it was a good thing to see, even though it was just weird to see. Like people were talking about just settling down and thinking that the funny thing about the whole thing was like they actually thought they were going to have some peace. It's not that they don't deserve it, but it just felt like the big thing is over, the family's back together, almost weirdly enough like a Fast and Furious dinner.
Right. What I was gonna say though is
I didn't rest the table yet, but
right. What just to get the conversation going back to what I was jokingly referring to as the meat and potatoes of the story. Richard Rider interrupts their little family dinner, and we actually find out over the course of this issue why we didn't see the Guardians specifically during Annihilation Scourge.
Right, which it makes some sense. Still doesn't answer why Night Thrasher wasn't called, but that's a whole separate issue.
Maybe we'll find out in the New Warrior series.
Yeah, I doubt it because I don't even think Nova's involved with that. So, but yeah,
we'll find out why he wasn't called. But
no, he was called. Remember? Oh, why?
Why Night Thrasher wasn't called? That's
right. Like I said, I doubt it because the one who would know that was the one he'd already talked to in incoming. So if he would have gone, unless it comes out some other way, I don't know, but maybe we'll see. Regardless, back to Guardians though. So Nova comes in. It's like, hey, we need to flee from help because, hey, guess what? An old thread from an old, from that last Avengers event that Al Ewing had a part of, by the way, just happens to come back to roost. in the form of the renewed forms of the Olympian gods, and who are basically wreaking havoc out in space for reasons.
Right. I mean, what's funny about it is, and hold on to your thought. What's funny about this is that the concept of the gods of, you know, the various pantheons of gods for Earthlings, you know, I guess it's an older concept. It's a concept that may have been that was probably started around, you know, even as far back as Kirby. You know, starting with the, you know, create, you know, like co-creating the Marvel concept of Asgard and the Marvel gods. But the concept that I'm referring to is these pantheons of gods being very much spacefaring folks, and now we find them, you know, maybe even as the Thor movie posited, aliens. So, you know, we you know, in this issue we have the one pantheon, the Olympian pantheon, the Greek pantheon of gods, reappearing in a very different locale. You know, and this is post, what was it, No Road Home?
Correct.
That's it.
So yeah, so Nova's calling for help, asking for help from the Guardians, and the weird thing about it is, like, the people you would expect to be along with the plan were the ones who were like, no, we want to rest. We don't want to keep having to go out and save the world anymore. You know, we deserve our rest. While the people you would have expected to be like, nah, we're good, were the ones, you know, were the ones that were like, yeah, we'll help. So, well, I guess with the exception, because I mean, Moondragon and Phyla, those, you know, they two were kind of, I guess, the wild cards in this one. I don't know, but because they were already on board, and then it was like, well, Gamora and Drax was like, nah, we want to get out of, we don't want to do this, or Gamora more specifically, and then it was Quill and Rocket surprisingly was like, yeah, we'll do it, you know, we'll go help. So there was that, and then, you know, basically one thing led to another, and then a couple, and those folks ended up going away on the team, and now we start to get to the rest of it, to where, you know, we get the rest of the players on the team, so that are on board, including one Novar Marvel boy who shows up from time to time, you know. So basically the total count is Nova, Quill, Rocket Raccoon, Novar, Moondragon, and Phyla. So as
I was gonna say, and tentatively Richard Rider Nova as well. So,
but I said Nova, I thought, but
well, no, you just mentioned Novar. So, but yeah, that's why. But you know, their plan to take down the rogue Olympian gods goes awry.
It pretty much goes as well as a Guardian's plan would normally go.
Right. And lo and behold, as they're trying to salvage the fallen wreckage of their plan, we run into the one character, and we were joking about this prior to the show starting, the one character that we had that we were thinking, or at least I was thinking of the entirety of this book. Is like, I wonder where this character is. Lo and behold, cliffhanger page. There he is. And I've already spoiled it by saying it's a he.
Right. So yeah, I wasn't necessarily thinking about it until he actually showed up, but I was like, okay, yeah, sure, that was the other piece of the puzzle that you know, that was around at the same time, you know, who had went off to parts unknown at the same time. So sure, why not? And I guess we could spoil who it is, but we won't.
Right. Although there's definitely, you know,
but given who we said who was the antagonist of this, you kind of have an idea.
Exactly. There's definitely a connection there. We'll leave it at that. Right. But I will say that I enjoyed this issue immensely. It was written very well. Shout out to Al Ewing. And
always good. Yeah.
And it really does help to have read a lot of the things that he had been working on within the last several years, because he brought together a couple of different threads coming out of No Road Home. And now here we are with what seems like a really lively, soft relaunch of the Guardians, and I hope that it catches on with people, and folks will read this book and support it.
Yeah, and along with that, writing some pretty clean art by Juan Cabal.
Yes.
Yes,
it's very clean, very, very well done art. It's not as stylistic as his Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man was,
right?
But it's definitely solid work.
It's also kind of weird because seeing Quill with the slick back hair is like, that's kind of weird, but it's also kind of a throwback to actually, and speaking of this, I guess going back to one point before we go on, that is kind of going back to the early days of Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon's early beginnings. In fact, there was even a flashback between them and and separately. Now that I think about it,
going back to their initial meeting in Annihilation.
Mm-hmm. So, and then of course you got what I think is a retcon, or at least a reminder of a retcon of Star-Lord's character from his beginning to his, like, when he came back into the fold during that time,
right?
Because there was because the reason why the reason that got him to go on this mission was partially because he couldn't sleep, and because of that was something that was in his head, which may or may not be getting addressed going forward.
Right, it's a seed that Al Ewing, I think, is planting for future issues. So
right, so we will see if that bears fruit. But it's definitely something out of his past, which has been kind of since kind of sort of retconned, or maybe being played with in this volume. But we will see. So yeah, it's a pretty good start to this volume. I enjoy Al Ewing's art. I mean, Al Ewing's writing. So I'm kind of on board.
Yeah, it's a potential click of the week choice for me. So I definitely am on board.
Yeah. So with that, we can move on. So I guess we didn't talk about this before, but that's okay. I figure like we would probably get to the other number one of the week.
Sure.
And that would be Atlantis Attacks number 1, because we've been talking about everything that's been building up to this.
Right. Imperious Rex.
I know, right? Just kind of came in. I was like, well, check box that. So yeah, at the start of this issue, we see Amadeus Cho and Silk kind of at the outskirts of, which was kind of weird at first, because like we see them at just kind of there right before you reach Pan, and then next thing you know, boom, Namor attacks, and then they just kind of seemingly
it is Atlantis Attacks, though. It's very much on the hitting the nail on the head.
True, and he definitely did, but at the same time, but it was like, okay, that happened, and then they was like, cut this other thing, cut what everybody else is dealing with at the time before they get back to it. To which, it still works out one way or the other.
Right. What's great about this, and I remember we had a discussion about what was going to happen to Agents of Atlas, whether or not they were going to get another limited series, and in effect, they have.
Right.
It's just named Atlantis Attacks.
So weirdly enough, yeah, it's basically usually, well, I guess, well, never mind, because it did, because Agents of Atlas kind of came out of an event.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is going back into an event, everything.
Or it is the event, right?
Event.
It kind of is the event. It's kind of like a minor side event, but what I loved about this is that, one, it is essentially a continuation, another limited series focused upon the Agents of Atlas and the
old and new.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to get to that, but and continuing the story of the creation of the the Pan Asian city of Pan, and and what Atlantis and Namor were basically doing to provoke, or at least to probe the defenses of Pan. And for those of you who have not read the previous Agents of Atlas limited series, we find out the big secret behind what is powering Pan and how that relates to the events that lead to this this mini event, namely it being named Atlantis Attacks.
Right, but there's also it's not just Agents of Atlas, but there's also some side stuff that kind of came out of Arrow.
Oh yes,
and
story, right.
Yeah, and also in a limited fashion, Swordmaster, because there was that backup story where they kind of, because matter of fact, they even reference it here where they thought Ares had
the dragon,
stolen the dragon and come out not to be, and that kind of played out in Swordmaster, and like I said, and the part which we haven't seen come into play yet, coming out of Arrow, but we know was a part of this also, with the Wave backstory.
Right,
is surely about to come into play, but yeah, like I said, it was a fairly solid start to this. You had a nice little I don't know if I want to even call that a battle between Amadeus and Namor. Like they traded a couple blows here and there, and while they were talking, and then it
was a skirmish.
Yeah, it wasn't like a knockdown drag out, which I feel like Amadeus was probably going to be on the losing end of that, but I don't know the upward.
What I didn't, the one thing I didn't like of all of the new Agents of Atlas, and we'll get to the cliffhanger reveal at the end of the issue, but of all of the Agents of Atlas, there's one character who should not be called a child or children, and that's Shang-Chi. And I hate the fact that he's depicted in the frame where Namor is like
basically being rude to everybody else. Oh my,
right,
yeah.
he's just being rude, and I understand that, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Your friends are children; they're trembling, full of doubt. And I'm like, well, yeah, they would be because they're a bunch of kids.
Well, not only that, but considering how old Namor is, yeah.
Right, but I mean that I understand too. He's essentially as old as Steve Rogers, and older.
Right.
So, but
and to your point, yeah, he was kind of grouping everybody. Like between that whole group, like Shang-Chi and basically Silk are the oldest two out of that. Well, actually,
yeah.
Well,
Silk is supposed to be Peter Parker's age. So.
Yes, but I'm just saying. But in relative to the group, like them two, and I think White Fox is possibly older than what her age would be. I'm not that part. I'm not too sure about, because that one shot wasn't really,
Mm-hmm.
They felt like they kind of had her. They set her around a certain age, which would seem to be possibly teen age, but it also was set in the past, so it could have been like a little older, and she seemed like a little older than the rest of the group. But regardless, Namor was basically just grouping them all as kids, even though despite the fact that there are some folks that are upwards of inhuman in age.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that. But regardless, that happens. I guess there's kind of a standoff between Namor and the group, which, as Agent 70 said, it was like him testing their the defenses of Pan. And then we come to find out at the end of this issue that what I've already spoiled is Jimmy Woo comes back into play with his old group, the Agents of Atlas, including one Gorilla Man who is with the Avengers now. But this looks like a more classic version of Gorilla Man as opposed to the one that's been in Avengers. That's in Avengers now.
It's got to be the same guy, though.
I mean, no, it's totally the same guy. But I'm just saying the look they have here is different from the one they have in the Avengers book.
Gotcha.
So, which is kind of weird, but at the same time, it's tomato. But that's pretty much it for that book. Like I said, a fairly decent start to this, and I don't know if this is going to be weekly or let's find out real quick, huh? Whether this is going to be weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever the case may be.
This may be coming out relatively soon.
Here we go. You can find out. Holding. Second issue comes out. Nope, looks like it's monthly.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's monthly.
Fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, well, the weirdest thing, well, see, it is, but the weirdest thing about it is, it's like, we have so many books that come out bi-weekly, so it's easy to keep up with those books, and with that, it's like, oh, right, this other book's actually coming out on a monthly basis, and with the bi-weekly books coming out, it's like, all right, it's easy to forget that, hey, these other books have a plot going on per month. So it's kind of weird on that front. But hey, we'll look forward to see what's happening next one. You want to throw out a book, sir?
Let's see.
What's next?
How about something I actually really enjoyed this week? Did you read Fantastic Four number 18?
I did read Fantastic Four 18.
All right. So
potential click of the week for me, actually.
I beg your pardon?
I said potential click of the week for me, actually.
Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I notated the same thing myself. So, and that's for the good folks out there who do follow the link to take a look at our show notes.
Mm-hmm.
So we are coming right off of the big reveal in the previous issue of Fantastic Four, in which we find out that the overseer on the planet Spire is essentially the person who was responsible for creating the Fantastic Four. Completely by accident, what he intended to do was basically kill them.
Well,
but instead, what ended up happening is that he created the Foretold, which is the
he basically created the problem that he was trying to fix.
Right. He basically created the problem that was allegedly foretold, in whatchamacallit, in story and in prophecy. So
right. So in doing so, before you go any further with that, in doing so, and we had this conversation, I think we did have it on air, to where when the last time this came out, this information was going to be of particular note to at the very least one member of or at least two directly members of the Fantastic Four, to which one of them was the cause of the revelation, and which is kind of funny because like Sue was like, in your plan to I'll tell you later, in your total, I will tell you later planning.
There's no time, right? There's no time. I'll tell you later, right?
Right. Like, did you think of the repercussions of your actions? And then it kind of came out. I was like, oh, right. There's one person on the group that was going to have a direct stake in the fact that this revelation happened the way it was, and sure enough, it kind of did. In one Ben Grimm, who, as stated in this book, which I'm assuming the other part is going to happen next issue, but after everybody finds out that hey, the overseer is the one responsible for them getting their powers, he is basically the one to blame for Ben becoming the thing and not Reed. Right. And he says here is like, you are the one responsible when I've been blaming my best friend all this time. So needless to say, he's a little miffed about that.
Just a little.
And of course, it is up to Sue to kind of to talk him down, while Reed goes shadow Johnny, as they tend to do sometimes. But it's like, yeah, the repercussions of that, I kind of went the way I expected it to, and I was kind of waiting for it to happen because I was like, I wanted, well, at least part of it anyway. Like I said, there is still that talk between Ben and Reed that will probably still happen, I assume, next issue.
Right. So what's funny about this, and hold on to any further thoughts that you have on the book. I don't know if we've brought this up before, but I think we have. But one thing was very obvious in this book. The visual designs, it's not Sean Isaacs on this book. It's actually a crew of artists on this. It's Paco Medina and Carlos Magno and a third artist. But that group plus Dan Slott, put together, it's Francesco Manna. That group plus Dan Slott put together, and over the course of this story arc, have put together a version, another version of the Legion of Superheroes. And in this issue specifically, we actually have a version of Lex Luthor's power suit.
That was going to be the next thing I mentioned that. So I'm glad you were going that way. Yeah. Because the Overseer apparently, matter of fact, I even have it in my notes. It's like, yeah, apparently the Overseer has Lex Luthor's armor.
Right.
And yeah, the Legion of Superheroes thing, I didn't directly think about, but now that you say that, yeah, that's basically what happened.
Because we literally have,
that's not a coincidence,
right? We literally have an entire group of what are they called again? I'm scrolling. I'm like scrolling. What do they call themselves again?
I want to say the Undefeated or something like that, but I can't remember.
The Unparalleled.
There we go. Yeah.
The Unparalleled. They are definitely an analog for the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah. And they're being run, yes. And Brother Eye, I guess you could say the Brother Eye is also in there in respect. Also,
right, there's lots of different aspects of DC. There's several little nods to DC stuff in there. But
if any of you happen to see Dan Slott out there, you directly, you can ask him. You don't have to do it on Twitter, but
I'll see him on the street.
Yeah, hey, you never know. He could be. I mean,
I've seen him on the street. So
exactly, they moved offices, so it's not like
he lives in the city.
He was previously.
Yeah, he lives in the city. But yeah, no,
do that. Don't. And I'm not talking to 87. I'm talking to anybody else out there.
Yeah, I was about to say I can be a scary looking dude sometimes on the street. So yeah, I try not to.
I mean, you're in New York. What can you do?
I mean, I remember one time I ran into Joe Quesada on Madison Avenue. I was like Joe Q. I just like said it in passing and just kept walking.
Right.
So.
Right. Just like the Marvel Universe, New York, you can just see anybody just walking across the street at any time.
Sure. Sure, you never know. So, but anyway, it's this is really an entertaining issue. We're still going to have one more issue in the world of Spire, because in the upcoming the advertisement for the upcoming issue, as well as the tagline on the last page of the book, it's to be concluded. So right. We'll see what we'll see how this story ends and what may come out of it.
Right. So real quick, just to kind of briefly over to what happens to the rest of it. So after this was out, there was still some things to kind of be resolved, and like I said, the whole thing with Ben and his feelings about what happened kind of came out in this, but also the fact that everybody ended up coming together, because at the end of what happened, which you can read for yourself, everybody had to pretty much come together to lend a helping hand and save the day, because because of what happened.
Things go bad, right? Because things go bad, they have to work together. They have to put their differences aside and work together.
And which also caused whatever prophecy to kind of sort of come to come to fruition.
Sure. At
the end of the book, and that's where we're going to leave it until the next issue. So, like I said, yeah, this was definitely a potential click of the week for me, and apparently for Ethan.
Yeah, for myself as well. Super entertaining read.
So, and I am very much looking for, again, just like I was with this issue, I am very much looking forward to the next one, because I hope. Well, I mean, that's nothing saying that they have to, but I would love to see. I can't wait to see the conversation between Ben and Reed, because I feel like that has to happen.
Sure.
After all this time, and I just kind of want to see how it plays out. It's not necessary, but I still want to see it.
Right. All right.
Moving right along. I guess we one more before we hit the clicks. Not the clicks, before we the fire. Um,
And I think we read a lot of the same books in common this week, so
Pretty much.
Empyre will probably cover a lot of the stuff at the same time.
yeah, although we our DC pickings are different. So,
Mhm.
pick a next book.
Marauders, number 6.
Yep. So Marauders number 6. Basically the shoe dropped on one thing we knew it was going to happen, and
Eventually, right? I didn't think it was going to happen so soon, to be honest.
yeah, that's kind of true too. But I mean, Sebastian Shaw, what are you going to do? he's not a man known for his great patience. So you figure that was gonna happen at some point. And obviously it's not going to be the end of things. Now the question is what he ends up doing to a certain person of note from this book. What's going to happen with that? Because there are still some things that are up in the air with their status on Krakoa and things surrounding that. So, but before we get to that point, we find out that Hate Monger and the Executioner were working for some folks. Actually, well, basically, this was all a lot of this was applied by Sebastian Shaw to kind of get what he wants, but at the same time, there are some other people.
Right. There's two separate. Yeah. There's two kind of concurrent plots going on.
Right.
So, like plots against the Krakoans and specifically against Kate Pryde's team.
Correct. And the plot against Krakoa happens to do with, you said they were like former Hellions, correct?
Former members of the Hellfire Club.
Hellfire Club, right.
Mm-hmm.
Who have lost their powers in there, but they still have enough power in the form of their wealth, and they are trying to basically get a piece of the Krakoan action by bringing in they basically interspaced the MCU Yellow Jacket,
right?
If you know that reference. Also, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or any kind of reference like that, I guess you want to cover, in order to infiltrate, the island, and that seems to be going along during this fight between the Marauders team and Hate Monger and the Executioner. But yeah, and at the end of that, like I said, we kind of that fight kind of gets ended one way, not necessarily finalized, but it does end one way or the other after their mission gets completed, and then Sebastian Shaw ends up showing his hand, and basically telling Kate Pryde, "I did this to you," and exacting his thing, and hopefully Lockheed is all right also.
Right, that's part of the cliffhanger.
Yes, and we will see. Well, I guess one way or another, we'll see the results, because either one, she's going to get saved and they're going to stall it out a little bit more, because we still don't know, because there's some things about her we still don't know, especially with her in relation to Krakoa, and her being able to enter Krakoa was most likely that. And if the theories are correct, her status as a mutant, but I hope that doesn't get changed, because that'd be messed up, I think. But so either one way or another, either she's gonna get saved, or protocols are gonna be in place, or maybe they will do some mix of both. We don't know at this point until this issue.
Right. I just wanted to make a note on the art in the book. It's by Matteo Loli and Mario Del Panino. And it definitely has some strong pages and not so strong pages, so I'm not going to come out and say who did what part of the book, but
I don't know if we even know that, though, do we?
What's that?
So do we know who did which?
I can sort of tell based on style, but I think it's actually divided roughly in half.
Right.
So
it does kind of flip from one way to the other in pages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the styles kind of flip halfway through the book.
But though I didn't think it was that jarring, though. Like, yeah, it was different. There was a difference that it was notable, but I don't think it was like bad to the point of being jarring.
Well, I felt like it was a little bit. So that's just that's definitely a personal preference. But
Sure.
in any event, that all that aside, I thought that it seemed like it was a little soon for Sebastian Shaw to make his move, but at the same time, as you said, you knew it was coming. So,
and I feel like this probably is obviously not going to be the end of it, just because he put
no.
it in. So
No, but it's interesting to see that he made his move, and I wonder what the rest of the Quiet Council would say. But I guess they may not find out right away. We will see.
right, but and also if the cover to one of the next two issues, from if I remember correctly, has any bearing on what the issues may end up being, we're going to have a confrontation between at least one person on the Quiet Council and one of the members of the Marauders team. Assuming, like I said, assuming the cover bears out like it was, because not all covers go directly towards what the insides have.
Right.
But we'll see. That being the case, if we're there, we can go into rapid fire.
All right, I'm gonna spin it up. All right. Let's see. I think we have several of these books in common, so I'm just going to go forward with what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing Spider-Man, number 38. I thought this was a really fun addition to what's been an ongoing mystery involving Teresa Parker and the remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D. Also seeing where J. Jonah Jameson is taken by Nora Winters, kind of made me feel old.
Well, and it also, going by my notes, it also made him feel old because basically, as I have my notes, it basically says JJ has met the future of media and he has met himself because, as he's going along on that, he's basically seeing all of the stuff that he's been presented with is stuff that he's kind of sort of done in his past.
Right. He sort of started, he was the progenitor of it. He started the beginnings of it.
Right. So it's kind of hard for him to admit to that, but he's still kind of floating around on whatever this new venture is going to be.
Sure. He's not trying to sell papers. He's trying to sell clicks.
Yes, basically. Which actually brings to the other thing, because yes, this also was a commentary on the BuzzFeed / clickbait. As I have in my note, the clickbait culture of news on the internet now, or in certain parts. I should not all the way, but in certain parts of the internet, and it is definitely just kind of ripped from that too. Because like everything, including some direct BuzzFeed, so
right.
BuzzFeed is in this universe.
Right. I would also add that there is a real world parallel in this, in that Chance, a character, the last time I remember him was in the early McFarlane issues.
Right.
This character shows up with and entices the foreigner into a friendly or not so friendly wager, but it's also something that is that has a real world parallel in that gambling has become much more it's become more legalized in many in many forms around the country. So to see this particular form of gambling, betting on superhero battle outcomes, just seems like a natural progression. So it was pretty interesting to see.
Right, and also this at the same term, basically where it takes place. In this case, it's taking place in the sky, but in a lot of places in the real world, it is basically on a riverboat or some place off near the coast or off the coast in certain places. So there is also that parallel. And also, apparently, it's Mr. Sinister approved. Apparently,
exactly. I was about to say, shout out to I did see that. Shout out to Ivan. Is it Ivan Coelho?
Mm-hmm.
On art. It's pretty dynamic, and good job on backgrounds, dude.
Right, really. So
that's my that's my little bugaboo about some of the art that pops up on Amazing. So yeah. Next up, Batman number 87. It turns out the first issue of James Tynion IV's run on Batman was a setup. The assassins wanted to get caught, and more plans are afoot. Personally, not sure if I want to continue keeping up with the story. We will see. The art on this was a little unsteady. It's not Tony Daniel, it's somebody else. I'm sure that Tony Daniel probably had a lot to do on the previous issue, so it was someone else. I will look to see if I can get a name.
I was about to say, wow, that if that's the case, that was quicker than y'all did on King's Run.
Oh, you mean jump off?
Right.
I mean, I think the storytelling on King's Run really, and the fact that he was coming off of Vision, I think really convinced many readers to stay on. So yeah, it's Guillaume March. Guillaume March. That's the artist, and was a little bit much for my taste. So just the style wasn't really working for me. Black Panther number 20. I believe you read this.
Correct.
The one thing I have to say about this, the few things I have to say about this are war. What is it good for?
I believe, wow, coincidence, because I believe somebody just had their birthday in relation to that song.
Sure. The stratagems and political intrigue, I believe, are what Ta-Nehisi Coates seem to excel with, in this book. So, kudos to him. On kind of reeling me back in on this. I just didn't, I felt like the intergalactic empire of Wakanda, that part of the story took a little bit too long for my liking, but I like how it's weaving into how he's woven that into where we are now.
It's grounding itself again, basically. But yeah, I didn't have the problem with it. I was just kind of along. It was very much Star Wars, that aside. But yeah, it is definitely starting to ground itself again, even with all whatever elements of it. But and the fact that they're putting a character back in play by virtue of our way around, it's kind of weird. But I guess it's working out. We'll see where it goes. So,
alrighty. Next up is Excalibur.
Oh, it was indeed Edwin Starr, the singer songwriter of that song, whose birthday was on the 21st.
There you go. Excalibur number 6,
who's also dead.
Excalibur number 6. We were
we were talking about this before the show.
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show. This particular campaign of Tinny Howard and Marcus Toe, this particular AD&D campaign comes to at least the briefest, comes to an end, but obviously there are things afoot as the story goes. But essentially the Braddock siblings, and I'm talking about all 3 of them, start the process of figuring things out when it comes to Otherworld. We also find out that Apocalypse is going to continue to be a driving force in this book, and Morgan Le Fay is not gone from this story, as we find out on the cliffhanger page. So,
right, and also one shout out to Marcus Toe, because the art in this book's great, and also he's got Rogue looking pretty nice throughout the course of this, and that whole thing with Rogue, her being encased in whatever, or in trying to
or whatever,
has been dealt with, and she's out, and as a result, apparently somewhere in there she's got control of her powers now, and also coming into Excalibur in the first issue, her and Remy were talking about the future, specifically where the mutants are supposed to, repopulate, and they were thinking about it before everything went down. And apparently they have a talk about that near the end at the end of this. So fans of Rogue and Gambit will probably love that last scene one way or the other, no matter how it played out.
Sure. I have to appreciate the fact that they are not going to leave Brian Braddock in the wind.
Yeah, because it looked like it was kind of going one way when they were having their talk. As a matter of fact, something that we talked about previously from the past that has come up with them and another version of the Captain Britain powers seem to be back into play, but he may not be the one that's wielding it.
Right.
We'll see if it goes the way I think it is going to go. Because it looks like they played it up, so he may be having his original powers back, and she may possibly be becoming Lionheart, Betsy.
We will see where this goes.
Yeah.
You know,
they didn't outright say that, but there was an exchanging of tokens. So
right, and it's funny that I was mentioning that I may be back on board with Excalibur now, because I was kind of hesitant to stay on. I was never the biggest fan of previous iterations of the book. I kind of required a little bit of Nightcrawler for me to be in on the book, and
I feel like that's coming, and I agree with you, because as a fan of the original series specifically, I kind of agree with you. But at the same time, later versions, didn't. Actually, I take it back. I did kind of fall off the book after a while. But regardless, like when the whole Pete Wisdom thing kind of came along, and a whole new group and whatnot, that was a thing. But
I think Nightcrawler was still there for a lot in
right.
So, I mean, at least that's my personal preference for.
I agree with you.
Book. So, but in essence,
but there's nothing saying that he probably won't show up. That's all I'm saying.
Well, all I was going to say is, I'm sort of back on now, so I may have to go back and look for some of these back issues of Excalibur and track them down and see if I can't put them into my collection.
Or read them on Marvel Universe to see if you want to do that for sure.
I'm a completist. We also have copies. We have our review copies. So
you don't go back that far, though.
What do you mean? I'm talking about Excalibur 1 through 6.
You're talking about this one, this version?
Yeah, the series, yeah.
Oh no, I thought you were talking about the old series.
Oh no, I'm just talking about the series. I believe I jumped off it after issue 2 in my in my own personal collection. So I may have to track down 3 through 6. So.
I got you.
All right, next up, so we talk Marauders, we talk Guardians, we talk FF. The only thing I've got left is Superman number 19. Half this issue makes sense to me because it deals with the immediate aftermath of the now unspoiled or spoiled/unspoiled reveal that Clark Kent is Superman. So dealing with some of the pragmatic issues that come up with regards to Clark Kent's role as a reporter for the Daily Planet. The other half, what's that?
I said, oh,
right. I mean, it's dealt with pretty matter-of-factly, so you can just skim it and take a look and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But Bendis really puts a jarring transition in the book, in that he returns right back to a long-running storyline that involves establishing the precursors of the Legion of Superheroes, that it being the United Federation of Planets, I think it's called, or is that the Star Trek version? But
yeah, it's like you're talking about Starfleet. Sounds like
that's essentially, but that type of structure is one of the precursors for the Legion of Superheroes. Yeah. And that is has been a long running storyline in the Superman books that Bendis has been carrying forward. So it's kind of a jarring return to that storyline. Say again?
I guess it makes sense since he's writing both books.
Right. But as I mentioned, it proved to be a pretty jarring jump between two stories. But that's the deal with Superman number 19, and I'm done.
Well, that's Bendis for you. He's kind of does things like that.
Yeah, it's gotten a little, but it's got, I don't know. Maybe it's just that I'm not as connected to the DC characters, so it doesn't go over as well with me.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, and because I was going to ask, like, what is there any precedents for them establishing that before now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Legion of Superheroes.
I'm not that familiar with either. So
Right, with the Legion of Superheroes. That's the whole that's like the unifying body, that keeps these planets together
mhm,
so that they're willing to send representatives to the Legion.
gotcha.
It's what you call it? They call it United the United Planets. I'm
Okay.
looking for I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it's just
Regardless.
they're just called the United Planets.
Sure. Yeah, regardless.
They don't have the Federation in there because that's obviously Star Trek.
But speaking of the United Federation of Planets, happy Star Trek Picard Day, which started today. It's recorded as of this recording, the day of this recording.
Hey, folks, help a brother out. Not looking to subscribe to CBS All Access, although I do know that they have a free trial.
I was about to say, yeah, waiting. You could also wait until like I don't know how many episodes this season is going to be. Wait till all the episodes come out, then do the 7-day trial, and that way you don't have to worry about that unless something else comes out. But we'll see. Actually, I still need to see if I'm still in it. I think I may have unsubscribed. Either way, let me get to my quick my quickies here, and because I only have a couple of books in the way. Far Sector number 3. This is the continuing mini for the Green Lantern Joe Moline. I think that's how she pronounces her name. I don't know because it's never been said out loud, or it has been said out loud, but I haven't heard it. This is the book by sci-fi writer N.K. Jemisin. It is a miniseries, I believe, of 6, if I'm not mistaken, and this is the 3rd issue. So yeah, so in this issue, she's still out in the way out reaches of space, dealing with 3 different factions and and another thing that it'll notice, because basically everybody in this whole society don't have emotions or are basically disconnected with their emotions, but there is a drug-like thing that gives people back their emotions, and then there's this whole war between the people who are on this thing who want their emotions because they feel like that choice was taken away from them at birth, since everybody in the society has to take whatever this thing is or have to disconnect with their emotions, and they're the ones who feel like, well, society's better off because no one has emotions. So there's that, and she's still trying to keep the peace for little things. And then there's this other counselor of one of the 3 races that she's had to deal with, who's basically on front facing. He acts like everybody else, and he's like off whatever thing they call it. I can't remember what they call it when you're on the drug that gives you emotions. I'm not gonna look for it right now, but basically he's kind of on it. He kind of showed his hand to her, but it seems like he's playing another long game behind the scenes also, with what is going on in this society, and we don't know how that's going to play out, but we shall see. It's been a good book. Like, there are some naming conventions used in this book that's a little kind of either on the known or basically on the nose referential, let's say, especially if you're aware of parts of the internet culture at large, I will say, and you will probably read some of this as like, but at the same time, whatever, it's a small thing. You can let it bother you, or you can just let it ride, so it's not that big of a deal. But that's, like I said, it's been a good read so far, and I would like to, at this point, once this book over, I would like to see some more for this Lantern. Whether that's going to happen or not, we will see. And the last book I have is, I finally caught back up with this, Batman Curse of the White Knight number 6, which I believe this is a DC Black Label book, and there are 8 issues, so there's 2 more to go in this. And in this one, like I said, it's basically I guess you can call it an Elseworlds book, because it's not prime Batman, but it's an alternate version of Batman and things going on, written by Sean Gordon Murphy. And I've said before that I love the first miniseries. This one kind of took me a second to kind of get into, because it's basically a continuation, and it seemed like it was falling back into, the whole it's a Batman story basically. But this one, and while there is still some shades of that, but this one kind of goes into not only kind of some history, dips into some history of Batman in this universe. I.e., Azrael shows up, Bane shows up for a second, but that gets taken care of. Azrael wants to become Batman, and he kind of does in this particular issue, but not in the same way that he did in the Prime universe, because essentially in this universe, and I guess it was some of the same things may have happened in the Prime universe anyway. So Azrael is pretty much the same kind of sort of character he was, but the Waynes has history in Gotham. And they are like, basically the history of Gotham has to do with the Waynes and Azrael's family. And in this particular issue, we found out that there is a twist to that may change things up for how the Bruce of this era kind of sees things. There was a secret that was being kept from him that he never knew. But as he's been going through the course of the story, he's been finding out stuff about the family that he did not know, and that has to do with the founding of Gotham. And like I said, and this last one is one that he just found out is possibly going to change things for him in this universe. And there was also another subplot of Jack Napier version of Joker, and he is teetering with his duality, and him dealing with Harley, and Harley's got kids with him, and there was a whole plot where the kids got kidnapped, and that whole thing with Joker seemingly been taken care of. And also Commissioner Gordon died in this Commissioner Gordon has died in this series, and Barbara was also paralyzed, but they're going to seem to be working on that in the next couple of issues also. So like I said, I have been enjoying it. It's a good, definite alternate to the regular series Batman. I say definitely check out the first one, Batman White Knight. Check this one out too. If you're so inclined, if you feel so inclined after reading that, because it is definitely some pretty good storytelling, if not familiar in spots, but it kind of goes a little different path than it did regularly.
Gotcha.
And
I was gonna say, every time you said Azrael, I'm like, where's Gargamel? But anyway,
yeah, I know.
Every time you said it,
yeah. And also Jason Blood shows up, but not necessarily in the role that you expect him to be, if you know that name. But that is referenced.
Gone the form of man. All right. So we got clicks of the week coming in.
The week. And we have one in the form of One PC and _ Dirt with a book that I intend on.
I think we both meant to read and didn't get to it.
Yeah, for one reason or another, because it was out there, but we didn't just and that would be Ghostbusters. That's with an S. Year 1, number 1.
It's a good looking book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Like, there's a lot of, I know I've said it before, like there's a lot of Ghostbusters books, miniseries, and out there, and a lot of them are crossovers, and that's get to be a lot, but some of them are good and some are not. This is not a crossover. This is just a plain old, as the name states, a year 1 book. Matter of fact, I'll just read you to the thing that this is. In anticipation for the new Ghostbusters film coming to theaters summer 2020, we look back at The Boys in Gray. First year on the job, showcasing never before seen adventures. After defeating Gozer and becoming heroes in cities, county, and state of New York, a publisher has decided to cash in with a biography of The Boys in Gray, and Boys in Gray is in caps, and send a writer to interview them all for background. He starts with Winston Sedmore, which is why he's all over the cover. The first buster hired into the supernatural startup. He's seen shit that'll turn you white. That's me. But Winston relates the story of his very first bust, so we can finally know what kind of stuff he's seen that'll turn you white. It actually says that in here. I did not even read that. I mean, apparently I read that. I made the joke before it was actually in there. So yeah, if you are interested, go check it out like we plan to. And with that, like that is Dirt's pick, which I need to put this in here before I forget. You got yours?
I am going to go with Guardians, the new Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Guardians of the Galaxy #1 by Al Ewing and Juan Cabal.
Solid pick.
And as we mentioned earlier, that Fantastic Four issue that came out this week was a close second.
For certain. This is what is starting to be a normal week again for us because there's a decent amount of books.
Mm-hmm.
I have one for Tim, by the way, because he may have been busy and not able to get back with us about that. Or if you even read anything, who knows? You know what? I think I actually will go with Fantastic Four. That Excalibur book is also a good pick because I personally think, because the way that ended, or even going through that whole thing, like it was kind of weird. Especially I read last issue and this one kind of back to back, so it was kind of fresh to me.
I gotcha.
And there was
about to say the middle issues of this story arc were a little tough on me, but I think the last couple of issues of this story redeemed it for me. So.
I mean, sometimes you gotta have a little lull before, it can't be all on and popping all the time. So
no, but sometimes the setup, the setup is what hooks you, and I was completely hooked. So,
right.
But yeah, no, I give Tini Howard credit for coming up with a way to end the story that actually has me wanting more. So,
right.
All right. So we've got our clicks of the weekend.
Not the weekend, but the weekend. Yeah, so please give us an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Blue Apron. It's Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Get fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron. Always shipped free to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today. Now,
here's a little tip. Here's a little tip for Blue Apron. You can go to their site, and there at the bottom there's a link to a cookbook, and they will give you the recipes for the stuff that they have. You can go peruse that and actually go and buy the stuff and make it yourself without going through Blue Apron. But you may want to check out Blue Apron because some of the stuff is convoluted. And
I was just going to say though, the fun part about Blue Apron is that everything is measured for you.
Exactly.
If you're not trying to, buy stuff so that you can get a couple teaspoons out of it.
Right.
Sometimes that Blue Apron stuff really works out.
But there are people who like to cook and therefore can, if they didn't already know about this, they can go check it out. And they got a lot of stuff there that you can check out. So if you can be like, okay, you know what, I want to try this stuff, but I don't want to, like Agent 7 said, do all the measuring and buying all this extra stuff, which is how they get you. Not a bad thing. This is now we're not getting paid from these folks. Well, I guess whatever, it doesn't matter.
We are doing their advertising.
We are doing their advertising, but I'm just saying we directly. But all I'm saying is like, hey, the recipes are out there. You go check them out. If not, check out Blue Apron. There's actually some good looking stuff out there if you want to check it out. Anyway, on to the cinematic news. I love food, so I had to kind of mention stuff like that. Avengers, Karen Gillan.
We are doing their advertising.
Hey, you chose that one, so I did. That was the side note. Avengers, Karen Gillan wants to star and direct a Batgirl movie. I guess, sure. So Guardians of the Galaxy star Karen Gillian has turned her sights to the DC Extended Universe. Asked what other pop culture icon she would like to play. Gillian told Brazil's Omelette, I guess. Batgirl will be pretty cool. Yeah, she's a redhead. And I guess, well, I mean, Karen Gillian's not necessarily, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't mind her reasoning. I don't know. What do you think? You know, her as Barbara.
Whatever. Tall. She's tall.
Is she? I don't know how tall is she?
She's
talking about Barbara, or you talking about Karen?
Karen Gillan is a tall lady.
Is she? I don't know. I guess every time I've seen her, she's been around.
You just have to see, who she's being cast with. That's all.
Well, no, I guess if you think about Avengers, yeah, I guess, sure, I guess so.
She's a tall lady.
Yeah, she's all right. So I don't know whether that's going to actually happen or not. Which who knows at this point. That's the thing that's kind of been put out there. Next,
new set photos for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show on Disney Plus feature Wyatt Russell as the U.S. agent, along with a piece of hardware that's very familiar to fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Dun, dun, dun. We all know what that probably is. It's a shield that may or may not be the exact shield that Captain America used.
Yes. So that was a Twitter post out there, which if you're watching the video, you can see set photos of said person in said suit that he shouldn't be in, regardless, especially with who he's playing. Oh wait, actually, that's not him in suit. That's somebody else in suit, and that's just him behind him. Yeah. Anyway, I don't like U.S. agent. I've made that known. So it'll be good to see. Well, it won't be good to see, but regardless, I'm curious as to how they will have him in this series. Next up, an impressive voice cast has joined Patton Oswalt for Marvel's Modok. So yeah, that Modok animated show is still on and popping, and it looks like he will be joined by Dexter's Amy Garcia as Jody, Modok's wife, Parks and Rec's Ben Schwartz as his son, Brooklyn Nine-Nine's Melissa Fumero as his daughter, the Goldbergs' Wendy McClendon McCovey, as Modok's work rival Monica Rappaccini, which that is the name of recent I want to say Unstoppable Wasp books specifically, but also other books that she's appearing in. Saturday Night Live's Beck Bennett as Austin Vandersleet. I'm not sure who that is. And Curb Your Enthusiasm's John Daly, not the golfer, as the Super Adaptoid. And also Veep's Sam Richardson as the henchman Gary. So if those names are familiar to you, then yeah, you'll be happy and or sad for all of that. Next up.
All right, next up, rumors have swirled that Jared Harris's mysterious unnamed mentor character in the upcoming Morbius movie could actually be longtime Spider-Man villain Dr. Octopus. Variety, the magazine, asked the actor outright if he was playing Doc Ock, and he flatly responded no, but that could just be a big fat lie.
Yeah, it could be, or it could be he's telling the truth, which Doc Ock is the only one of the only ones that we haven't seen in the Tom Holland books. I mean, in Tom Holland movies, because pretty much the rest of the Sixes all but accounted for at some point in time. So,
except for Electro.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying
it all depends, right? It all depends on the makeup of it. So
correct. And again, Morbius is not necessarily. Well, supposedly Morbius is in the MCU or whatever the case may be, but things are where they are in the Spideyverse. On the Spideyverse, who knows what the hell's going on? So yeah, that's the thing. It happened. Doctor Strange 2 will reportedly introduce America Chavez. Reportedly, I should stress this because we don't, it would make. I would say it would make sense, given that the title of the movie is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and America Chavez is a being of the multiverse. It could make sense that she could come in with this thing, but they need to iron out a director since they don't have one at this point. So before anything goes any further, to which most of I think it was mostly a lot of stuff was done anyway. So who knows what else needs to be done? And again, this is rumor, so we don't know. I would like to see it, but they do. But basically, this is saying that they casted a Hispanic female teenager as a supporting lead, and that could be America Chavez. Could be Zelma Staten. I doubt it, but and that's just a little bit of subterfuge. But hey, we'll see when that movie actually comes out.
Alrighty, next up, Star Wars' Oscar Isaac is starring in and producing the Ex Machina adoption. I think we talked about this last week. Oscar Isaac has boarded The Great Machine, which is the new title of Legendary's recently announced film adaptation of Brian K. Vaughan and Tony Harris's award-winning Wildstorm comic book series Ex Machina.
Right, we talked about it, but his involvement wasn't known at the time. Cool. Next up, some very exciting, well, obviously this was exciting news regardless. A stunning new Star Wars trailer heralds the final end of the Clone Wars. Exciting news not for the end of the Clone Wars, but for another season of Star Wars Clone Wars. Did you watch the trailer?
Yep. Can't wait for February 21st.
Yes. Have you? Well, you said you've already done a rewatch, right?
Yeah, I'm done.
Recently.
I just watch it for fun.
I mean,
sure. I watch various parts of Clone Wars and Rebels for fun.
Yeah, I am. So on that respect, on Rebels rewatch, I am on season 4 now.
About time.
Oh hush. Matter of fact, I just started season 4, and a matter of fact, this is basically pretty much when I started my Clone Wars rewatch, because I basically did the first couple of episodes of the actual order that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started the movie in which Ahsoka actually comes in, which is kind of funny because seeing the beginning of that movie and something that's been said in that movie and something that gets said between Rex and Ahsoka near her time, well, at some part, yeah, mm-hmm. It's kind of like, all right, so they just basically up into that. I totally forgot that happened, so it's kind of amusing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Get those rewatches out there if you plan on doing that, or get those started before this happens. It was a good trailer, which goes into the next story, and I'll go ahead and take it. In that the Star Wars Clone Wars teases the Duel of the Fates 2.0 with Darth Maul and Ahsoka, which actually brings me to something that was said in two other things that were said in the trailer. One happened to do with the clones, and in a episode that I happen to be watching that is actually at the beginning of the Clone Wars rewatch that feels like could play into that. But in this case, Ahsoka and Darth Maul are going to square off, and Darth Maul says something like, basically, hey, everything has come down to this, to which we know is not true because he shows up in Rebels. But as far as the end of the Clone Wars itself, that is possibly what it meant outside of overall. So, and it looks like there's a lot of there was a lot of stuff from Mandalore, another character from Mandalore who I have also happened to show back up in Rebels as my rewatch is going on, gets shown in the trailer. So, and it's going to be talking about the Siege of Mandalore, so all that's going to be good. And yes, I cannot also wait until the 21st. That's all I can say.
Alrighty.
Next up,
and just some related Star Wars news. So some fans got together and posted a fan casting, hoping for Ahsoka Tano in season 2 of the Mandalorian, and they cast Rosario Dawson in the role of Ahsoka, and she is apparently very much on board with this fan casting.
I'm Actually, and yes, I remember when she retweeted this, and I was like, I can kind of see it because even the tweet says if you're watching the video, you can see it. She retweeted it from somebody who was like, just referencing Ahsoka, just for reference, Ahsoka Tano would be in her early to mid 40s during the Mandalorian. Hashtag the Mandalorian. And then there's a picture of Rosario Dawson with a face similar to one that Ahsoka has from Rebels. So, and again, she says, tell them hashtag Ahsoka lives, and which means she's down with it, like she said. So, I don't know. I can see it. Sure.
It works.
Yeah. Next up, whoops. Speaking of Rosario Dawson, Rosario Dawson will headline her very own comic book show, possibly, maybe. It's worth noting she already has a show, which I think is a limited series that is on TNT going on right now. But this is saying that she has just been cast as Alma, the medic at the center of DMZ, a new show in the works for the HBO Max streaming service. DMZ is based on the vertical comic of the same name, created by Brian Wood and Riccardo Bercelli. It's about a futuristic America in the midst of civil war. Insert jokes there. In the center of that war is the demilitarized zone of the title, which just so happens to be the island of Manhattan. Anyway, Alma traverses that dangerous place, helping people, but also looking for her missing son. So, and it says here, this article says, the catch here is that so far Dawson has only been cast for the pilot. And the show hasn't been picked up for a full season yet. So whatever happens take that from what you will, basically. Yeah. Next up.
All right. Next up, apparently an artist thought he was being original and created Baby Jabba the Hutt, but we've already seen one that was called Stinky in Clone Wars.
Yeah. AKA Rodda the Hutt, AKA Punky Muffin.
In any event, it's apparently this 3D artist got out there and put together a rendering of it.
So now, granted, and the funny thing when I saw the rendering, like, yes, it is cute, but as some people has posited, it looks like the baby from Dinosaurs, that old ABC show.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and when I first saw this, I thought the same thing. In fact, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I kind of did go on. It was a nice little playful rant about the fact that yes, we already have a Baby Jabba, and his name is Rotta, and he had a whole ass plot, which in the movie that I referenced earlier, the Clone Wars movie, about him. So the fact that one, I have yet to see an article, with the exception of this one, even reference that fact in talking about this Baby Jabba is a shame. Like, I think this is the only article that I've seen so far that has even referenced the fact that there's actually a canon Baby Jabba.
Mm-hmm.
So that one right there was kind of like, really? Okay, people. But regardless, whether the artist, knew that, when he made the rendering, or was just going off of what was already there and making a more stylized version of it, who knows at this point? I was just like, come on, folks, really? Read a book. Anyway. But yeah, Rota's out there. Baby Jabba is out there. Now, this next story, I just kind of put in for funsies, because the fact that someone from Men's Health took the time to write an article saying, stop standing Baby Jabba, he's evil. Men's Health, folks. This is how wide that got. So but I guess they needed clicks because they already got it. But so basically this person wrote this, went into the whole Baby Yoda thing and then went into the Baby Jabba. Still no reference to the actual Baby Jabba, but and then went on to suggest why he's evil. It's kind of clickbait personally, but at the same time, it was too funny not to put in the lineup. Next up.
The writer of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, admits he would happily tackle a Dash Rendar standalone, but only if he can kill off the smuggling, the smug smuggler before the credits roll. So,
which is kind of funny. Again, Gary Whitta. So worth noting, Gary Whitta, the writer of Rogue One, who killed a whole bunch of people in that movie, by the way, also was he was basically the head editor of a video game magazine, PC video game magazine back in the day. Excuse me, PC gaming magazine back in the day. So his roots in gaming is kind of, is out there before his writing creds on this stuff. If you know of a certain thing, so basically, he was out there. He knew about Dash Rendar, which we talked about last week, by the way. So that was also kind of funny in itself. There was also another project he said he would take on, but that has nothing to do with comics, so I won't mention it here. But the fact that someone asked him that, and he said that he would kill off Dash Rendar, which I can kind of understand why. It's kind of funny. Not that it'll ever happen, but it's out there. Next up,
you got
Bad Robot developing film and TV projects based on Warner Brothers DC Comics Justice League Dark. I don't know how to feel about this. Actually, I do know how I feel about this. One, could they not find anyone else to do this? Like, he's already had his pies in Star Trek and Star Wars. Do we need J.J. Abrams to get into the dig his fingers into this? Which, yes, by the way, Bad Robot is J.J. Abrams' production company, if you did not know that already. So the deal is very nascent at this point, so there isn't any specific projects or characters that are being specifically developed out of the franchise. This writer says they understand that Bad Robot's head of motion pictures and head of television will be taking meetings with talent reps and their writing clients on which characters will get their own projects. So, yeah, Justice League Dark may possibly get some TV love or something. Okay, next.
all right. Next up, Supergirl, the CW show. Alex Danvers teases her own super transformation in a costume in a new photo on Instagram. Alex actor Kyler Lee posted a photo of herself wearing a black and blue Supergirl costume and sporting a new hairstyle, long black waves and bangs. There's a picture in the video feed. The overall ensemble looks a lot like an inversion of Kara Danvers' red, yellow, and blue costume.
It looks good. She looks good, I will dare say. So I don't know if that is. I would assume that it's something coming out of the Crisis, or I don't know if it's something they're going to be messing with in the coming season. Let me see. The recent, says, however, the recent collapse of the multiverse may have something to do with it. After all, in last week's episode, Team Supergirl encountered several doppelgangers of Brainy who transported blah blah blah. So basically, this is coming out of the Crisis of Infinite Earths, which is, I believe, at this point is over with, and I still haven't watched. Have you?
Nope.
Yeah. So one of these days I get to it. So cool. Black Lightning actor Damon Gupton announces exit from the show. So the actor who played the Inspector Bill Henderson on the CW show since it debuted in January 2018 announced by Twitter on Sunday that his time on the DC Comics saga is ending. He says, unquote, and that's a wrap. My final night on set of Black Lightning. Gupton captioned a picture of his chair on set. In December before Christmas, I was told that Chief Henderson is not in the plans for season 4 and that I would be let go. My heart to a hell of a hardworking crew. Big praise to cast, writers, producers, staff, CW, WB. So there you go. Next.
All right. So this is a spoiler for the mid-season premiere of Batwoman, in which there is some accidental relationshiping between Kate Kane's Batwoman, and a DC Comics character named Slam Bradley. And are they dropping real names, like actual people's names in this? Like looking at this article, I'm like, did they really mention that in the show? Like they actually say he's got Chris Evans vibes?
I suspect not. No, I don't think they. I suspect not. I think that is the writer of the article saying that.
Okay.
I suspect that strongly that's the case. I haven't been watching the show, so I couldn't tell you. I'm not that versed in the Batverse to know who the Slam Bradley person is anyway. So, but yeah, I suspect that is all that the mechanism. That is all basically up to for this article. The authors of this article saying. But who knows? Like I said, I haven't watched the show, but I very much doubt they'd say that on the show. HBO Max and DC Universe's relationship is still being worked out. Good. Warner Media's HBO Max streaming service is set to debut this May and is set to share some original content with its sister streaming service, DC Universe, as well as feature some DC-based shows that will not be on the DC-themed service. HBO Max's chief content officer Kevin Riley said this week that the relationship between the two is still being ironed out, but hopes both can continue. And we weren't really sure about that since we knew HBO Max was coming, and the fate of DC Universe, which I was hoping would still kind of stick around. Despite some of the possible problems that thing has, but it's still a pretty good service, I think. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. We do know, because I know it came up on Twitter, like Stargirl is going to be on the CW and is also going to be on DC Universe, and I don't know if it's going to be on HBO Max, but that's probably not the case. So we'll see how they work that out. Next up,
prominent comic book writer Gail Simone is offering her services to draft a Black Canary solo movie starring Juicy Smouye. I mean, I swear to God, Dave Chappelle put that in my head. This person's name is Jumi Smollett Bell, who plays the character in Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Yes. So, yeah, I remember seeing this tweet. I'm like, well, if they're gonna do it, and since they got her right now, I guess they could do that. But I don't know. We'll see how Birds of Prey plays out. So yeah, it's also saying that the other characters mentioned were Holmstress, who's also in the movie, and also a couple of other characters that Gail Simone created. So she has a personal stake in it, which she is definitely as far as Birds of Prey is concerned, she is definitely a prominent writer. I mean, she's written a whole bunch of good stuff. I'm just saying, but she is known a good bit for her run on Birds of Prey, which I hear is pretty good, and I don't think I've ever read. But I like Gail Simone; she's all right. Especially some of the stuff that I know I have read for her, because I think she also recently wrote Domino. That Domino series is actually pretty good. Star Trek: How Picard connects to both the Prime and Kelvin timelines. Plus, she's kind of a troll, and I know some people like that, which I love. Anyway, so apparently Star Trek Picard will take on the task of merging events from both older and newer events from the Trek universe, spanning several timelines. The upcoming CBS All Access series will feature Patrick Stewart returning to his star, making role as Donald Picard, and the show's backstory is already making a name for itself, uniting two major Trek timelines through one event, the destruction of Romulus, which makes sense. If the timeline, because that's where the timeline split in the first place. So they're going to do something with that. That's interesting. Because the Kelvin timeline pretty much started with that, and I don't think that's probably never been referenced anywhere else. So the fact that they're bringing it up here is going to be the bridge. I am curious to see how they do it. And guess what? First episode of Star Trek Picard. It's out there today. If I haven't said that earlier, I look forward to watching it. Next
up, I actually saw this video.
I did too.
Right. Patrick Stewart appeared on The View this week, and while he was on The View, extended an invitation from himself and the crew on Picard to one Whoopi Goldberg, who is a regular co-host of The View, to come onto the Picard show and reprise her role of Guinan, which is really cool. And she accepted and was very happy to do so.
She was choked up about it too, because if you watch, because even watching this little clip of the video they got, she was kind of, now mind you, Whoopi Goldberg is a big Star Trek fan, and that is kind of how she got the role of Guinan in the first place with in a Next Generation. So it was clearly a big thing for her to be invited back to this. On a side note, I do remember seeing something about now that this news came out, there were some folks suggesting, hey, how about a Guinan CBS All Access show about basically the early years or whatever of Guinan, and I'm like, sure, why not? That could something, because we don't really know a whole lot about her character outside of she's known Picard forever, but we never knew how that actually came into being or anything like that. She just kind of popped up one season and stayed. So but yeah, it was a cool moment. If you get to watch that video, you should. It is very good. Next up, CBS All Access spinoff series Star Trek Section 31 will begin filming May 4th in Mississauga, Canada. I'm assuming I said that right, but Canada, you can correct me all you want. So yeah, apparently this site has learned that CBS All Access show will be like I just said, I pretty much basically said everything from that you needed from this article. And that the writers Bo Young Kim and Erica Lippo will serve as co-showrunners, and they also wrote the pilot. So there's already a pilot that's going to be dealt with. And Michelle Yeoh is a part of it, by the way, if that wasn't blatantly clear. So plus for that one. Next up.
All right. So there are rumors that a Witcher animated tie-in film is in the works at Netflix to tie into the live action adaptation of The Witcher that is currently on Netflix for people to binge watch.
Pass a coin to your Netflix.
I haven't watched it yet, but it's not even on the queue, but I guess I'll pull it up when I get, when I'm good and ready.
Right. Yeah, look at the first couple, I think I've talked about it before. The first couple of episodes I've watched have actually been pretty good. I need to finish the rest of it. But next I'm trying to do 2 different rewatches now, and trying to catch up on some anime, which I don't know how well that's going. Anyway, meet the monster hunting family of Netflix's October faction. Steve Niles and Damian Worms' progressive family of monster hunters are moving to a new address this week, Netflix. The duo's 3-volume IDW publishing series October Faction has been adapted for TV and will debut actually at the time of this recording today, January 23rd, or apparently. But this isn't your average monster hunting show, according to showrunner Damien Kindler. So yeah, if you know of that book, then I guess you'll be interested in the show. I'm still waiting for Bitterroot to get his movie personally, but I may check this out. Who knows? Next up.
All right. There's no is there overflow?
No, there is not. But I will say that by the way, April solicitations the solicitations for April have come out, and some of the news that we will be talking about in the comic book section that is starting right now will be coming from that.
Alrighty. In Flash Forward number 5, I believe this was last week.
Yes, I think so.
Wally West did something that should be impossible. He ran faster than, spoiler alert, actually outran the Speed Force. I'm not reading this series. I don't know if you are.
I have not. I had planned to check it out, but I have not read it yet.
I mean, okay. That's about
Yeah.
what I could say.
Yeah, like I said, I was just kind of curious because basically like I was hoping something came out of that. Something was going to come out of that event from last year that Wally was kind of a part of slash the main person on going into this, but I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I haven't gone out of my way to actually start this book yet, but I was kind of curious into something to what to start at the very least. So at some point I get to it. But yeah, apparently he just outran the Speed Force. Anyway, comics. Next up, DC First Look, meet the new Flash villain Paradox. So there's some preview pages for, I'm assuming, Flash number 88. Yes. In which a new villain, Paradox, is going to show up. And if you're watching the video, you can see the said pages from said issue. You weirdly kind of look like Doomsday mixed with Apocalypse. I mean, not Apocalypse. Darkseid. Kind of. So anyway, yep, that's it. If you're reading the Flash, go for it. Next up.
Already, DC has revealed the contents of February 19th to Wonder Woman Giant number 3. This is that Walmart stuff, right? Apparently, Wonder Woman must save Gorilla City in this book. So for those of you who are into those giant books, have fun.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of them, and I still have yet to read them. Like when they first started coming out. Which I think were like Justice League stuff or something like that. So I assume they must be doing pretty good if they keep putting them out. Yeah. Stargirl graphic novel is on the way. The release date scheduled from 2019, but now on track for May 2020. So DC Comics has announced the Stargirl graphic novel release for May 13th, 2020. The graphic novel was originally solicited last year for September 18th. 2019, but then DC canceled the release date for unexplained reasons. However, because there is a new Stargirl TV show that is upcoming, that might be why they're pushing it back out again, which would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up.
Vertigo's Twitter account has shut down and now defers to DC's Twitter account. So, there's one more nail in the coffin for Vertigo.
Right. So sad news. But future updates on Vertical-ish type stuff will be on the regular DC thing, I guess. So, Batman animated series spins off with a new miniature board game. Okay. IDW Games is in partnership with Warner Brothers Consumer Products, and DC announced today that Batman animated series Adventures Shadows of the Bat will launch on Kickstarter on February 18th, 2020. And as the name implies, it's a miniatures board game driven board game, excuse me. And Shadows of the Bat, that if you know where that's coming from. So, and I couldn't tell you what the system is, the AUG system that it's using. So, yeah, board game, folks. Get your wallets out. I guess it looks pretty good though. Regardless, weirdly looks like a chessboard in certain cases. So, if you're interested in that and you know of the AUG engine, hey, that might be something up the alley. If it ever reaches stores, maybe I'll check it out and have people to play with it. Next up.
Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid gets a new free scenario to mix and match Zords. So this is Renegade Game Studios recently published a new scenario for this game. It lets you use different Zords with different Rangers. This looks like a board game or a card game.
I believe it is a card-based. Yeah, I believe it is a card-based game, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen this, but I've not really checked into it a whole lot. But yeah, so basically, the studio is giving out a free scenario, like it says, and that's pretty cool. You can download it and check it out. So, and I guess and it sounds like it kind of plays into it by the name's implications, Heroes of the Grid, aka Battle of the Grid, the miniseries. They've been getting a lot of play out of that since that thing's happened, since since that thing's come out. And there has been mixing and matching of Zords since that. So this new scenario makes a whole lot of sense. So cool. Speaking of the Power Rangers front, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 gets a 3rd printing. I don't know what's going on with that book, but apparently it sold a good bit to get a 3rd printing. And also meaning fans get another awesome variant cover, which I assume this is it on the video. If you're watching the video, but I need to go ahead and read that book. Apparently, I mean, this sounds like an obvious trap, but if it's getting a 3rd printing, not granted, I was going to read it anyway. I just hadn't had time to. I mean, so because this was something I was gonna. This was inevitable. I was going to read it anyway. I'll let you know how that is. Next up. Oh, by the way, the 3rd printing will be available in comic stores on February 12th. Next.
Fantasy Flight Games is going to end its card and dice game. They've announced that Covert Missions will be the final set for Star Wars Destiny, after which they will be ending the product line. This is it's a game that featured a dual dice system, and it spawned 9 booster sets, 6 starter sets, 2 draft sets, and a 2-player starter set. All but no me. So the line's officially wrapping up.
Right. So, and probably by the time you hear this, I suspect a lot of that stuff, if you by people who are into this stuff, probably have already gone and bought that stuff. If not, already had it. And whenever this one comes out, or if it's already out, yeah, that's probably going to go fast considering it's the last one. I don't know. Star Wars: The Clone Wars to become a weekly comic. It says the 5-part IDW series will be written by Michael Morrissey and features new stories from the classic conflict each issue. It says the series will be, like I said, a 5-issue anthology similar to IDW's Tales from Vader's Castle and Return to Vader's Castle minis. Written by Who Has Said, with framing sequence each issue by Derek Charm, as the heroes from the animated series share war stories while pinned down in the middle of the context. Okay, so it's basically the same kind of anthology type wrapping of the other stuff, and also Star Wars Adventures is the same thing. So cool. May check that out when it comes out. Next.
All right, Marvel is shining a spotlight on Empyre star Emperor Hulkling, who is it looks like a one-shot throughout this April, in which writers Chip Zdarsky and Anthony Oliveira and artist Manuel Garcia are going to explore Hulkling's ascent from his origin to his present day and the destiny that took him there. Interesting.
Yeah, right. Hulkling of all characters. But then again, they've been setting it up for this. Seems like there's been something they've been kind of setting up for kind of years at this point, and finally making into something with whatever this Empyre event is going to be. And speaking of Empyre, Adventures in Fantastic Four earn Empyre 0 issues, and you can see what I assume to be the cover here. And I'm guessing this is these 0 issues. Let's see, when Empyre #1 hits stores in April, it will be the culmination of decades of worth of Marvel storytelling, in an epic sci-fi tapestry that will delight both longtime comic fans and newcomers. I'll be the judge of that. Before the debut issue lands, 2 all-new essential one-shots will pave the way to this grand event, because incoming wasn't enough apparently. Empyre 0 Avengers and Empyre 0 Fantastic Four. The pair of stories will be written by the architects of Empyre themselves, Al Ewing and Dan Slott. I'm on board. With art by Pepe Larraz and R.B. Silva. I'm still on board. Fresh off their work of House of X and Powers of X, these 2 superstar artists will once again complement each other's skills in mirroring stories. And then it kind of goes on to say, what's going to happen in those two zero missions, those two zero issues.
Right.
So,
I was going to add that the zero issue covers are they're joining cover. They're connecting covers by Jim Chung. So it's a pretty good package, and I'm definitely going to be putting these on my pull list.
yes, the Empyre Avengers, Empyre Zero Avengers is written by Al Ewing, while the Fantastic Four obviously is being written by Dan Slott. And Pepper Larraz doing art on the Avengers one, and RB Silver's doing the art on the Fantastic Four one. So
that works.
Yep. Next,
speaking of Empyre,
perfectly.
The official handbook of the Marvel Universe is going to return as part of Empyre, and there's going to be an Empyre handbook to supplement everybody's reading, and it's going to be out in April.
Not to be confused with that stupid show on Fox.
Ha.
And also worth noting, as said, it is a supplement to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe and not a reissue, which I kind of would have hoped for. That includes all of this information, but they have done this in the past with stuff.
Mm-hmm. They have done this in the past when it comes to some of these crossovers that have lots of obscure characters, specifically space ones. So
right, but still, I would really like. I know there's the web for that kind of stuff nowadays, and we've tied this conversation before. But I would really like a redoing of the Companion. But then again, there's so much history that it would have to work around. To do something like that, and again, there is the website.
Yeah, I was about to say it's more efficient for them to just keep it on the web.
Yeah, but I know you would feel if you saw that there was a set of books like that, you would probably want that, wouldn't you?
Yes and no. I really like the old ones. I know that they're redoing the old ones in recolored form and hardcover form. But I think
that one only goes to a certain point, though.
Right. I think with the with the thing is, what's disappointing is that I don't think they do a good enough job on the websites to provide that. I think they rely on the wikis.
Correct.
And that's the disappointing part of the whole, data, data basing of these characters and their stories. It's a mix of the blurbs that are on the Marvel website and what are on the wiki sites. So it's it's disappointing, but I feel like that's the future. I think that's where they just need to focus a little bit of effort into putting out an official handbook that is accessible online, even if it's for a subscription.
Right.
If they made it as part of Marvel Unlimited, I might think twice about joining. If I had access to that as part of Marvel Unlimited, that would be pretty cool.
Actually, would be kind of good. Actually,
that sounds like an email I need to send.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. You can't steal that idea because he said it here.
It's just a suggestion. I don't think anyone's going to make any money off it except for Marvel. But they need to invest in that. That's the kicker. They need to invest in whomever is kind of the keeper of updating the handbook data.
Well, that's why they're lazy and putting it in the hands of the wiki.
Exactly. Maybe they need to appoint someone and get someone to update the websites, and that would be, like I said, that would be a big incentive for me to jump on the Marvel Unlimited bandwagon.
Side note, I can't even get into Marvel Unlimited, and I don't know what's going on there because every time I try to log onto it, I don't know, maybe it has something to do with Chrome and my
really.
Yeah, I can't get logged in because it won't because every time I go to log in, it just kind of stops. It just doesn't do anything. It doesn't even get me to a login. Depending on where I am on the site, and it goes to sign in, it doesn't give me a sign in page. And when I do get to the sign in page, it just doesn't go anywhere. So
I was going to, that's on my list of things to consider doing this year is jumping into Marvel Unlimited.
Now, mind you, there is an app and it works pretty decently. So
right. That's what I was going to say. I think I would just stick to looking at it on my iPad. So,
well, yeah, but sometimes I'm at the computer and I want to just quick look up something right there, and I had a link to it. And again, it might be something with my browser. It has nothing to do with the site itself.
Sure.
It might be something on my end that might be doing that I need to check out, but I'm not sure why, because I don't have ad blocker on that.
Right.
So I'm not sure what's going on. Anyway, I'll figure that out. Regardless, yeah, that would be an interesting thing to have in an addendum to everything else on that site. Because even the stuff they have on there is just like it's on their thing is kind of just halfway. Anyway, the MCU's most beloved hero, notice I said MCU, most beloved hero just became Marvel's newest villain. So this is spoilers for we already kind of talked about this last week, Iron Man 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But fairly certain we did not talk about this part. And apparently people love the MCU version of MCU, of Tony Stark, according to this writer. And I don't know who made that vote because I didn't. But I guess we come to find out in the course of Iron Man 2020 #1, which I still hadn't read yet, that the Tony Stark that is still floating around, which is the AI, becomes a part of the robot revolution. I don't think you mentioned that. You may have mentioned it, but I don't remember if you did or not.
I mean, I think I didn't spoil it because it was at the end of the book.
Right. I mean, it's fine. It's like a week or 2 weeks old. Well, no, it's a week old. Yeah. So, but yeah, it is continuously funny to me how they've done this character since the MCU. Like, he's dead in the MCU, but and they killed him off, quote unquote, killed him off here, even though he was still around in AI form, but he was kind of still around. It's almost like well, we just want to, and I'm sure they'll bring him back in some sort of actual physical form and be like, he's not an AI anymore or something like that. I don't know. They didn't.
I was about to say that's probably the result of this, the end result of this event. But I still like the fact that they really have done something with this Iron Man 2020 concept. So
right. So yeah, we'll see how it bears out though. Right. But yeah, apparently that is the thing that happened. And speaking of
the Iron Man 2020 concept, Riri Williams is joining the robot revolution with 2020 Ironheart #1. So she was not on the bench for long.
Well, I mean, this is only a one shot, but nevertheless, yes. And I believe she's also going to be a part of that the Champions Outlaw thing. And she did show up in Black Panther this week, so she is still around.
Right.
She just doesn't have an ongoing book like she did. So yeah, Vita Alaya and Danny Lore and David Messina are the creative team behind the one shot of Ironheart 2020 #1. So cool. Yeah, like I said, I still need to catch up with that stuff to see what's going on. So we'll see what's going on. Next.
That's you.
Carmen Canero and Saladin Ahmed introduces Miles Morales to Outlawed. Coming in April, Miles Morales Spider-Man #17 ties into the game-changing event. Which, surprise? No, not a surprise at all. We knew he was going to be a part of it. But nevertheless, this April, Miles Morales Spider-Man #17 will be amongst the first series to tie into the most earth-shattering young hero event in history, Outlawed. That is, this is obviously coming from the Marvel site, so those are not my words.
Mm-hmm.
And uniting to tell the tale is Saladin Ahmed and Webhead newcomer and Captain Marvel All-Star Carmen Canero. Is that the writer or is that the artist? It's the artist?
I think it's the artist.
Okay. I know you've been reading Captain Marvel, so I don't know. So yeah, but so yeah. Basically, Miles is going to have a story that's going to reach into the outlawed thing, which makes sense. So, next up,
the drum beat for Marvel Comics' next big Amazing Spider-Man story begins in April with the Sins Rising Prelude one-shot. This is hot on the heels of last issues, not this week's issue.
Correct.
Amazing, but last issue, the previous issue, which revealed that what appears to be the first Sin Eater is back.
Yes.
So that is going to be, I guess, part of a new big story in Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh Lord, another event. God help me.
No, it's just going to be a little bit mini,
It's
a little
still
story.
an event. Doesn't matter whether it's free or wide. It's still an event. But yeah, I don't know. This one actually, I say all that though, but when this revelation came about and knowing the history of it, it's like, okay, I'm curious to see where this is going. So I say what I said, but it's still like this is actually pretty interesting. Next up, Black Widow, the new Marvel series, explores the duality of Natasha Romanoff. So yes, there's going to be another new miniseries for the Black Widow, this time written by one Kelly Thompson, who was all ecstatic about it on Twitter, and rising star Elena Casagrande. Casagrande? I don't know. My apologies to you for that. Who has done the art for Catwoman. And the cover art by Adam Hughes. So that's going to be some good looking covers. So, Kelly Thompson's done some good work. So I have enjoyed some of her stuff. Like Marvel tends not to find too many new people to do stuff. So it makes sense that people there have been making the rounds with get some more work. When is this coming? Obviously, since the movie is coming out, there's clearly something. Weirdly enough, that last the web of Black Widow that just ended, some would argue was weirdly timed because they could have kind of waited and done that here. But this is something different, so who knows? Black Widow #1 will hit stores in April 2022. No, excuse me, 2020, which would be after the movie comes out, I believe. Is that right? Regardless.
No, before I believe.
Wait, the movie's coming out in, I thought,
May?
I'm mixing up movies then. Okay, yeah. That's right.
You're right. Before.
Right. Anyway, next up.
Next up, the Immortal Hulk, hunting for horror in America's Heartland, thanks to Jeff Lemire and Mike Del Mundo. The two creators are working on a one-shot called Immortal Hulk, The Threshing Place, where a gamma-irradiated monster is on the loose, but it's not the Hulk, so he's out looking for it. That's actually a pretty interesting creative team on an Immortal Hulk book.
Mm-hmm. And weirdly enough, it looks like a middle finger in the background, but I know it's a silo. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see more about that when it comes out. All right, folks. In other places in other ways that you can become a comic book writer, you can be a. You know what? I was going to be really mean, so let me just go ahead and say this: Werewolf by Night, revamped with Native American lens by Black Eyed Peas' Taboo. So yeah, Taboo of the Black Eyed Peas. You may know him, you may or may not. I don't know. Is going to be writing a Werewolf by Night book, and apparently this is not the first time. And I totally forgot about this that Taboo has written for Marvel. But I never read this. So who cares? Taboo and one Ben Jackendorf are behind this book, and this is going to be a miniseries, I believe. That sounds about right. Anyway, there's going to be a brand new version of the character named Jake of Werewolf by Night, and his name by Jake. The new Werewolf by Night will be a young man named Jake who will be dealing with the effects of a family curse while trying to protect his people, reads Marvel's description. The events of the story will also be driven by the outcome of March's outlawed one-shot. So for those of you who didn't know Taboo could write, much less, speak, hey, there you go. And know who he is at that. There you go.
Okay. Next up, so this is a little news story about a book that's upcoming called, it's actually next week, called Weapon Plus World War IV #1. It's about it's a follow-up on Man-Thing's origin, and it's involving the new character called Manslaughter. Oh, brother.
Yeah. But yeah, as you said, it has its roots in the origins of Man-Thing because of one Ted Salas. Those of you of a certain vintage and know who that is, know what that's about. So yeah,
no fear, you burn at his touch.
Exactly. Written by one, I guess, new favorite of Age of 70s, Ben Bursey.
Mm-hmm.
George Jonty is doing the art with cover by Kyle Hotz. So cool. That's, I think when we first heard about the character, I think we had the same reaction. But yeah, it's a thing. It's coming whether we wanted it or not. Next up, Deadpool flexes his X-Men cred with a visit to Krakoa. It was bound to happen sometime. April's Deadpool number 6 will send Wade Wilson back into the arms of the X-Men as he butts heads with the mutant team over his desire for a Krakoa gate on Monster Island. But when the X-Men don't exactly want to welcome Deadpool on Krakoa, he'll mount a full-on invasion. So basically, Deadpool being Deadpool. Again, bound to happen. Next up,
Children of the Atom. Marvel introduces a new team of X-Men sidekicks. This is actually a CVR piece written by our very own Tim Adams. It is, this was teased as a new X-Men team of new young mutants. Marvel's revealed the creative team and roster for the new series. It's written by Vita Ayala and illustrated by Bernard Chang. Children of the Atom introduces a team comprised of X-Men sidekicks. So this is going to be at least an interesting concept at first. So we will see.
Right. At first, because when I first saw this, I thought this was supposed to be like some future, like the Chimera of the future type of situation. It kind of seems like it may be sort of anyway, especially with the makeup of the team, but doesn't necessarily seem that way. Because basically, I think Rachel's going to be on the team, and then there's the daughter of Bishop and Deathbird, which
we will see.
Yeah, would they even have kids? That's weird. But regardless, I don't know. I'm kind of interested in this. Regardless, and shout out to Vita Ayala. She's getting in work. Taskmaster, Nightcrawler. So basically, I put the story in here because Taskmaster is getting a miniseries in April, but he's not the only one. So Taskmaster, Nightcrawler, and more titles are announced for April because, like I said earlier, solicits for April 2020 is out. So not only is Taskmaster getting a miniseries, there's going to be a giant-sized X-Men one-shot focused on Nightcrawler. And there's also going to be how to read comics the Marvel way, as opposed to draw comics the Marvel way, that old book. A 4-issue of that. There's also going to be apparently a Deadpool and the Runaways book, and some other stuff. You can check out the solicits in the show notes for other things that are coming. Next.
All right, and last, I believe,
it is
in comic book news, Nancy Drew is dead. Hardy Boys are on the case this April. This is to celebrate Nancy Drew's 90th anniversary, and the famous literary character's mysterious fate is investigated in a new monthly comic series published by Dynamite starting in April. Help solve the case in Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, The Death of Nancy Drew. Interesting.
Or is it her death? So, actually, there's a weird takeaway from this that I didn't realize is apparently there was a Nancy Drew TV show on CW that is ongoing like right now. So, and I have seen some mixed reviews on it in research for it, but yeah, Nancy Drew still going strong, I guess, in one way, shape, or form. And that is it, folks, for the show. But before we get out of here, one last ad read, please, sir.
And you know what we read when we're tired and it's late. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, etc. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
I gotta get a logo treatment for that because I'm not pulling up Amazon. Y'all ain't trying to catch me out here slipping. Anywho, thank you very much for everyone to coming out for this here Comic Book Chronicles. We will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, with another exciting episode. Until then, I am Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter, News Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. You can also find agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_dirt on Twitter. Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com. You probably see him out in the streets because he's not on the show. Also, you can probably find in the streets is one Tim DOGG98 who is on that as on Twitter. You can also find him on TB Cron on Twitter. You can also find him at DClick Nation. That's DKLIQNATRON on Twitter, and also DClickNation.com. Hopefully, we will be trying to put some of these episodes back on that site because we've been kind of really slacking on that. And you can also find him on Comic Book Resources, where he is writing his face off like some of the stuff that we have talked about earlier. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Also, your podcast place of perusal place, whatever have you, Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. And also, you can find us here, like I said previously, every Thursday night, 9:30 p.m. on the Click Nation's YouTube page. With that, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. We will see you all later. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.